Welcome to Utah. It's a program dedicated to diversity, highlighting native-born and new Canadians' cultures and experiences. I'm your host, Ryan Funk, and I recently learned a lot about international business, working with others to overcome cultural and language barriers to achieve success. Keisha Paul seems to have figured out the code. Owner of Keisha R Consulting, and having worked in countries around the world, Keisha knows the value of formal education and practical experience.
I wish I could say I had this really typical point A to point B, went to school and everything was perfect. Yeah, it wasn't like that for me at all. It took a while for me to figure out what I wanted to do, but I knew it was always going to be having to do something in business. So I got my bachelor's from Asper School. And then after that, I went to England and I was working for a training company. Yeah, I was working for a training company in medical aesthetics. So that's anything, medical aesthetics is like anything that you do, any medical procedure you do for aesthetic reasons. So I never thought that I would work for that company, but I ended up doing it. And I was helping people who just graduate start a business. So that was my beginning of my consulting, learning how to consult. When I finished my time there and I came back to Winnipeg, I realized really quickly that all this consulting for that industry I couldn't use because there wasn't a huge aesthetics industry in Winnipeg. It just wasn't there yet. So that's when I kind of tried to see, okay, well, I still want to be a consultant. I don't want to work for a huge firm or anything like that. Where could I work? And I was applying for places, and then I found a nonprofit by the name of Seed Winnipeg, and I was a consultant there and was really working for people who are getting started with their businesses. And but that's when I was meeting people who are just come to the country, or or let's say we're starting a business for a smaller standpoint, just starting baking or just starting a hair salon or something from a way more grassroots level.
What inspires you to be passionate about helping people and focusing on that kind of aspect? What was it that you're I want to, go into Seed, help this, and then create my own consulting firm to, help people create their business or, help them succeed?
Well, I really, during my time, especially in England, I really realized that, and even in Winnipeg as well, I really realized that, there's a lot of help that comes from being super connected and knowing a lot of people. And there's so many strides that can come from just being in the right place in the right time. Unfortunately, if you're not in that situation, there's not a lot of help for you. And I've experienced that on my own, but I thought I was kind of one of the only ones because, I didn't come from a certain background or all those type of things. I always felt like it was always just me. Going out in the bigger wide world and realizing, no, it's not just you. There's a lot of people who struggle just because they don't know the lay of the land, or they're not networked with the right people. And as I got in a position of kind of having an opportunity to giving opportunities, I realized that people don't just want business information. They want to know how to be successful. People want to know how to move forward in the cheapest, easiest, stressless way, and I realized as I was consulting, I'm you know what, this is actually what people need. They don't just need how to make how to file my taxes, or you can get that if you Google it, you know what I mean? But what isn't out there is how do I make friends? How do I, and how valuable is that? I find, sorry to go on a tangent, but I realize that a lot of the time when newcomers come to Canada, they think what it takes to succeed is just being the brightest, or having great grades, or having the right degree. And you know what? It really isn't about that. Yeah, of course those things matter, but it doesn't matter nearly as much as making sure that you're well networked, maybe making sure that, people can relate to you, making sure that people are seeing past some of the superficial differences and actually getting the content of your character, and what are the barriers that is stopping that from shining through. I really think those are the areas that I help people with, in addition to business, in addition to business consulting. But I think those are the real areas that I help people with. And to answer your question more clearly, as I realized that was something I was gifted at providing for people, I really focused on doing that, as efficiently and as effectively as I could.
So you're inspired to get involved in this and helping people overcome those barriers. For yourself, as a woman of color, what were some of the barriers that you had to overcome in the workforce? I mean, there's unfortunately biases and prejudice in the corporate world.
I would almost have to take that question like a step before, because it's not like you all of a sudden just realize there's all these issues where you like fill out a job application. It's when you're in school and that, I'm different. Like, I feel like I have a very pleasant, like easy name, but going through elementary school, you would have it was like the hardest name in the world to say. And that's when you start to realize when you're a little kid is that, okay, if I do the exact same thing as all of my friends, I might not get the same results as them. I might have to do things a little differently. I might need to do things a little bit, better. So some of the challenges that I needed to overcome was, first of all, to realize was that pretty much that I may have to work harder. If I want the same results, I might have to do better. Also to realize that there's going to be people, or there are people, and they're not even trying to be bad to me or negative, but there's people who are going to look at me and there's a barrier up before I do anything. And how am I going to navigate that, And also, I would say lastly, racism is bad and prejudice is bad and there's all these things that are bad, but so what? Like, it's almost like nobody's going to, those things exist. If you really look at it right now, this is the best time in the history probably of Canada, North America, let me say that, to be a minority. And as much as there's so much negativity out there, and they're rightfully so, this is the best time. It's not going to get better than this anytime soon. So with that being said, it's like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to use this to benefit me? Because if I just look at all the negative aspects, like, you could drown in them. It's not to say they're not there. They are there 100%, but this is it, And I'd say lastly, and it's kind of a challenge, but it's a good thing, is that there are people who are trying to help you. There are people who are seeing, like, you're out there giving it your best shot. And, there are people who want to help you, to not close your vision to people who are out there who are trying to help. Like, for example, like, yes, I am a woman of color. I mean, some of the people who have given me the greatest opportunities and greatest shots are Caucasian people, because I think they saw that I was just out there flailing sometimes, like, just trying my best. And I didn't know all the right people, or I didn't have the know exactly what to say, or, but they were there willing to help me. I think sometimes when you can put yourself in a box, and you can also put other people in the box as well, and subconsciously refuse help and refuse opportunity. And I remember when I lived in the States for a short time when I was in junior high, and this example of exactly what I just explained, but like I had a guidance counselor, and he's a white guy, and great man. And he brought me to his office one day, and he's like, "Hey, like Keisha, there's this camp, and it's like a fully scholarship camp. It's at a university campus, and you get to do all these fantastic things. And, you know, we're choosing you to go." And I remember thinking, well, that's kind of strange. I've only been in this school for a couple of months. Like, why me, really? And I remember asking him, like, why are you giving this to me? And he kind of fumbled around and said some stuff. And then after that, he was like, I just said, you know, and I did fairly well in school, but still, it just seemed like you guys don't even know me. And then finally he said, or I had asked, like, am I getting this because I'm Black? he was like, you know what, Keish, what if I said you were? Like, what if? He's like, guess what? Someone's getting this scholarship. Why not you? Like, just take it. And I think that's the thing. Like, what I mean, like, you can, with some of the worst things that come with discrimination and biases is what you do to yourself, what ends up getting inside you. It's not even what everybody else is happening, what gets inside you. And I was willing to disqualify or not participate in something that was life-changing for me because I didn't like being like why I was being chosen. And I think over the years, just to realize I don't care how I'm getting like a hand up, like I'm going to take it and make the most out of it, and deal with some of the other societal issues a little bit later after I kind of capitalize on whatever opportunities I'm being given, because you know, until just recently, there hasn't been a lot of acknowledgement of some of the challenges that minorities have had to go through. And so with that being said, like, yes, it's great that it's happening now, but with that being said, for me at least, it was, hey, if somebody's giving you something, like, take it and say thank you, and you can deal with all that other stuff later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you've found success and you have an opportunity to kind of address those issues later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, absolutely. And with all that being said, like, I'm so happy that there has been a change in our society. We are more open to conversations about, you know, how systemic racism and prejudice and bias. But before, you know, a short time, not long ago, but, you know, it almost seems like long ago when we weren't having those conversations. The challenge was just make it through, just get through it, you know, and it's okay if, you know, people don't necessarily understand you or whatever. You can deal with some of that stuff on your own. It's not that everybody has to like you. Not everybody has to totally understand you, but it's that you do need to get your foot in that door by any means necessary. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you've worked all over the world with a lot of different people. How do you adjust your mindset when you're working with people in a different country who have different values or cultures? How do you have to shift your mind around there?
You almost have to have like a non-North American business style. And what I mean by that is when you're educated in or grow up in Canada or the US, you have this idea that there's like this universal way of doing business. You know, somebody could be wearing a turban, somebody else could have an afro, somebody else could be, you know, in a business suit. And in North America, in Canada, there's almost this idea that we're here, so we'll all do business the exact same. And then you go to a place like England, and you have people from Saudi Arabia, you have people from Nigeria, you have the people from Poland, you have, you know, French people, and then you have the English. And if you're in this itty bitty little small island, and we all have to work together. And you know what? The way the English, what I learned being in England is the way English do business is, no, we do have to adjust to everybody's way of doing business. And I mean, if you want to talk about culture shock, like that was probably one of the biggest ones, because I was so arrogant in thinking, no, there's one way of doing business and everybody's doing it wrong except for me. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, quickly I learned that, like, no, girl, like, it's not like that. And there's many examples. You know, you go to Harrods, which is like the shopping department store in England. Like, saying that is such an understatement. It's owned by I think either Qatar. Yeah, I think Qatar or Bahrain like owns it. It's in England. You know, it's the premier shopping center, one of the ones in the world, and it's owned by Qatar in the middle of London. You know, if you can go to a restaurant in there and they speak to you in Arabic first, and then they check to see if you speak English. So, I mean, they've had to adjust, and they're one of the major cities in the whole entire world. You know, being in Winnipeg, it can really kind of teach you otherwise. It's kind of like, oh, well, this is the way that we do things and everybody has to adjust to us. Whereas you can lose a lot of opportunities by not learning that, you know, your way isn't necessarily the right way, or even if it is the right way. So what, who cares? Like, move on and learn. So that's one of the things that taught me really to adjust, is there's no universal way of doing business. And if you're in a new place, learn their way quick. Yeah, that would be it. I'd say a lot of the time when you have new cultures, it's listening is far more important than whatever you have to say.
You have formal education, and in terms of work experience, it sounds like you were just thrown right into the deep end right away. Yeah. So what are what's the value of having both a formal education and that practical experience?
I think that formal education really improves your critical thinking. It also allows you to be part of the I have an expensive piece of paper club, and it's very valuable just for people who find that valuable. So if you're dealing with anybody corporate, if you want to get a position at, let's say, a fancy business or something like that. Like, when I say fancy, I mean like one of the top 4 accounting firms or one of the top 4 finance firms. You always hear people talk about top 4, top 5, and that it matters to them. Those certifications matter to them. And if you don't have it, it's that much harder. They want to see that you've put in X amount of years to show that you made up for that. And even still, somebody who, let's say, went to school for 6 years in a row, straight out of high school, and they end up having their master's. Oh, they have a better, fancy, expensive piece of paper than you. Okay, well, you know, you're no longer valuable or as valuable as them. Now, when you're dealing with people who, let's say, are entrepreneurs or have built their own business, they don't care. The piece of paper, they know it's an expensive piece of paper. And they don't care as much. Sorry, I'm just making sure my phone doesn't die on me. Yeah, they have the expensive piece of paper and they don't care. And they want to see the practical experience. And to me, now I value the practical experience way more than I ever did the schooling. I wish I could go back in time and put way more focus, not to say not go to school at all, but probably more practical education. As you can see, like with the world right now, is a lot of the things that people would have spent years and years getting this formal education, it's being completely automated. So what's it all matter? And I think definitely when I can talk like in terms of newcomers and stuff, they put a huge value on the formal education. And now like you're seeing such a huge change in North America where it's just like not going out the window, but it's definitely not put on the same pedestal as it was before.
What advice would you give to newcomers to find success in the careers that they're pursuing?
Find out exactly what is needed for success. Don't make any assumptions. So you assume that if somebody says to you, okay, well, we value Canadian experience, It might sound silly, but find out exactly what that means. And that could be by actually having a frank conversation with HR personnel and find out, is it that you think my expensive piece of paper is not as valuable as that one? Or is it that you're seeing that I might not be able to relate to the team as well? Because I find some of the areas where newcomers get it wrong is they so value being in Canada that they don't take any statement with a grain of salt. They're like, okay, Bible, this means I need to do X to get ahead. And then they'll go spend a whole bunch of money and, more importantly, time and energy on something that's not even going to get them where they need to be. I think that the one of the things that they can do is find out exactly, and there's people like me who will help figure those things out, but you definitely need somebody who will give you the honest truth. Even like, let's say you go for a job interview and they reject you, you can still talk to that same person and find out why. And I would say find out why, and people will offer that information, because you know what? No one wants to see anybody fail. Like, nobody wants to see anyone fail. People do want to see people succeed. But unfortunately, us as being Canadians, we don't like to be saying that straight up to someone is really difficult for us unless the person begs. So you can be that person, beg, find out exactly why, what is it that I need to succeed. Also, I would say putting the pressure on family members, in particularly your kids, to succeed in the same way that you succeeded, or in the way that you think that you should succeed. I would rethink that. I think more now than ever, a family unit is the thing that is going to take you further, not just resting on the success of one particular person. So when you look at it, it's like, maybe you don't need to go to university. Like, everybody doesn't need to go to university. I remember seeing an interview with Beyonce's dad, finding out how their family made their first million. It was with a hair salon. Like I think that, like, that's $1 million, and that was their first million. And he was, to put it all into context, he was a top executive for Xerox, which was like huge in terms of sales. And he made his first $1 million with a hair salon. So I think we really need to explore, like, not just our notion of success, one, what it means to us personally, but also, okay, if success means money or security, it's like, okay, well, what is the easiest, the cheapest, the most stress-free way of getting to that, and then stick on that plan as a family unit, as opposed to everybody just being frazzled, not having a strategy, running around with chicken with a head cut off, and flailing, And I think not just newcomers can benefit from that advice. Canadians can benefit from that advice, because we have a whole bunch of people incurring large amounts of debt. And when you look at what it's getting them at the end of the day, and the strategy for getting to where they want to be, a lot of time, like, there wasn't one. They just going off this idea. It's like, oh, that's what I was told. I thought that was going to be good. I thought that was going to make mom and dad happy. And like, I'm miserable, and the creditors are calling. So yeah, it's fortunately for me, I paid for school myself, and I didn't take any loans or anything like that, which is really awesome. But I spent a ton of time in school, stressed for like the best, quote unquote, best years of my life. And I could have done it totally differently, So yeah, I try and help my clients with that, like, just benefit from the mistakes other people have made.
If you have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight, leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.